if the stream comes up. I can't imagine why I wouldn't. All right, yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Looks like we are live. I think the sound is pretty good.
Okay. I don't want to hear this stream. I don't want to hear me twice.
Yeah, that was a little awkward.
Yeah, my mic setup is like set up so I can hear myself speak, so I don't mess up and I can hear the quality. But I just heard myself like 3 times. It was really weird.
Alrighty, we are just waiting on them, but this will be the semi-final match.
Semi-final is so hype.
Oh man, of the upper bracket for the 2015 Capital One Fall Tournament. Capital One Circuit for the 2015 Fall Semester. Looks like we're about to get into game on the blue side. It is going to be gr8b8m8 versus Team Seksi Mid on the opposite side.
Only the sexiest of mids for the other side.
Yeah, I am pretty interested to see how things go. And looks like we are into pick and ban. So on the new patch, wonder what are going to be the priority picks and bans.
So far, based off of what I've seen and before playing even on like PvE, just 80 carries are OP right now. They're probably some of the scariest things to see right now. And the first ban is a Jinx ban.
Yeah, Tom Kench coming out also. That was a very highly contested pick throughout the Worlds tournament. Thresh comes out. That's not... Thresh and Jinx, I think, are probably more related to comfort picks. Because, I mean, they're good, but they're not very overpowered. Brand, however, is very flavor of the month.
Oh, yeah. Brand is really, really strong right now.
Oh. And also you mentioned how important 80 carries are at the moment, and Malphite actually comes out as the last ban from TSM, and I think that's actually fairly relevant because a lot of people have been playing centered around 80 carries or more damage style junglers. Shout out to that Lee Sin ban. So the Malphite is such a good pick into that just because you have instant engage all the time. And
yeah, from what I've seen, so many 80 carries, like just based off of the items and reworks and things like that, have just become so strong. It's kind of almost ridiculous sometimes how strong they can be. And like when you see Graves burst someone down or just sustain damage coming from the crit if they use that mastery, it's ridiculous how strong 80 carries have been.
And Braum as the first pick, a fairly safe one. Oh, double
super health stack. Huge yeah. Oh my goodness.
Wow. So we kind of really need to see some more damage coming out from the mid and bottom lane.
Most definitely. I want to see that Vayne pick into those 2 huge tanks. Let's see if they can pull it off.
Yeah. Also going to be important to consider is that Mundo and Zac are very good early tower divers. Oh, yeah. And while Braum is as well, I mean, we'll have to look out to see if Purple Team decides to go for one of those level 3 ganks.
Oh, there's the Vayne hover. And a Rumbles are all locked in.
One thing that's been kind of interesting is that because we've seen so many more tanks in the top lane, with the addition of the new sustain masteries in the resolve tree, I've seen a lot of really high damage junglers, and so I've seen Zac around because obviously he did get buffed from the healing buffs as well, but yeah, I'll be interested to see if gr8b8m8 has a very aggressive early game jungler in mind to try to punish this Zac in his own jungle.
That'd be a really good idea, just because of the fact that, well, you've already picked Vayne into a very, very tanky team, especially with the Alistar hover.
Oh, man.
Also, that is a very scary team to take down, but Vayne will have a good time if she's allowed to farm up and get that gold going to pick up some of her items. And Mundo and Zac will be building a lot of health and armor and things like that, but true damage is OP in this game, so we'll see how this turns out, especially for the opposite side because we haven't seen a jungler yet from the blue team, but like you said, an early game jungler would help them out quite a lot. It would allow them to get lanes rolling, especially when I'm guessing that's a Rumble in the top lane. I have seen Rumble mid, but Rumble against Mundo, you really want to get that Rumble going, especially after a while in the team fights. If you can get that equalizer down and be ahead, that equalizer hurts.
Oh yeah, and Rita actually points out in the chat that GBM does like that Rumble pick, so I think gr8b8m8 might be going for that.
Yeah.
But they do hover the Jax, so that could be a Jax jungle with the
I have seen
Devour.
it. That actually recently I've seen it in games, and just after a while after the farm, it just is entirely just scary. I'd never want to see that ever again. But you know what? Looks like they'll pick it up. I'm guessing that's a Jax jungle. I don't think you'd take Rumble into the jungle, but after a while, if this goes to late game, Jax and Vayne will be some of the scariest carries that you will see from the blue side.
Definitely. I do like the fact that they switched from Alistar to Morgana because they already have a massive front line and engage with the Zac. So
Zac.
just giving a little more appeal and a little more damage to the composition as well. Going forward, I want to see how this Jax does in this split push against Mundo, because eventually Jax should win out on that, especially if you go for a Blade of the Ruin King.
Yeah.
The only issue I'm a little concerned with is that all of gr8b8m8's champions are fairly low range or immobile, and that does leave them very vulnerable to things like Twisted Fate, which I actually just got looked in for Seksi. Yeah. He has played that before in this tournament, I believe. And also the Zac, obviously. So, blue team's gonna have to make sure that they stay pretty careful around bushes, especially.
Yeah, I want to see how they pull this off, because usually in a situation where both teams have a lot of communication abilities and can actually talk through comms or something like that, TF's ult can be used poorly because you see it coming most of the time, and then usually based off of what pressure is where, you can tell whether or not he's going to show up in the lane or not. But we'll see how he can take advantage of it, because we did see the summoner spells. I saw him hovering his ghost, and I was wondering if he'd go for the TF. I really like the pick myself, and we'll see how it goes throughout the lane, especially in a matchup against Lux.
Yeah, so Lux might be able to punish that. Lux is somebody that could maybe interrupt Twisted Fate's teleports if she gets a binding. I don't know if we'll see that coming through. Vayne is going to go for the cleanse, and so Braum did actually lock in this heal, and Vayne has cleanse. That is something that I've heard talked about. I've never actually seen this happen before, but basically because the support mastery in the resolve, if you go down the resolve tree, you do bonus healing, and basically Braum gets more value out of the heal in total if you take it on your support, because he gets the buffs, and that allows your AD carry to pick something else. And obviously Vayne won't get the movement speed bonus from the heal. That's actually usually really useful, but we'll see if the cleanse proves to be very important, especially against targeted CC like Twisted Fate followed up by Morgana.
Yeah, Morgana CC feels like an eternity if that Q lands, and then if she follows it up with her shackles, ooh, that hurts. Especially because her shackles, even if Vayne is invisible, like her R will light up depending on where she is, if she's close enough in range of the ultimate, and that will take out the Vayne, just because of the fact that the shackles is just an AoE. It reacts to anything in the area, no matter if it's visible or not. So I think that's a really good way to play into a Vayne, especially if you can just layer all of that CC with the Zac, with the TF. And then a Mundo TPing on top of that. Jeez, that is scary for an AD carry.
That is very scary indeed. Even more scary is the fact that GBM is not running teleport. So, while they can have 5-man ganks down the bottom side for red side, but
exactly,
Rumble's trying out with the new, seeing if he can abuse the nerf on the teleport. They did increase the channel time by a half second and removed the cooldown reduction when used on turrets.
Yeah.
If GBM can get some early kills off onto Mundo, who is fairly weak in the early stages of the game, that might be enough to snowball this really high damage composition.
Most definitely. Especially just because early game, really, the threat by Mundo is his cleavers, and then if he wants to walk up to an auto, maybe even with an E proc, but I don't know if you want to get that close to a rumble with Flame Spitter. Be roasted like a nice duck. Actually, that sounds delicious.
Duck does sound pretty tasty. I'm a little worried on how gr8b8m8 on the blue side here will want to approach objective fights like the Dragon or maybe Rift Herald if they go for that, because they don't have a lot of engage, which means they probably want to get the objectives first before their opponents so they can set up proper vision control, because they won't really have a good way to lock down the enemy besides maybe a flash Brommel. But as a result, if you're getting there first and you start the objectives first, when you're against a team that has such good collapse and AoE, like with the Zac jumping in, that makes it a little precarious to actually start the objective itself. But I'll be interested to see how they approach this. They might want to just go try to set up vision baits and go for picks.
Yeah, I mean, the split pushing potential on that team is actually, I think, is also really strong just because they have Jax and Vayne. And
yeah,
if they, like, the kind of team fight they would have to have would be pretty immaculate, because if they land all of the ultimates, like say they land the Rumble ult in conjunction with the Braum ult, that's a knockup plus a lot of damage coming down from the Equalizer. And then all of those, like there are 3 ultimates on the side of blue side that are a direct line, like Braum ult, Rumble ult, Lux ult. And
yeah,
then
that's a really good point.
you really don't want to be fighting in like corridors or anything like that. You really don't want to find yourself in the jungle with no vision against this team, especially the fact that they can just take advantage of any kind of a small space and just line everyone up in that order.
Yeah, if they can try to bait gr8b8m8 them, or if gr8b8m8 can try to bait the enemy team into that, that would be really explosive.
Yeah, we'll see how great they are at baiting. We'll see. We'll see.
Also, with very power picks like the not the Jax, but the Rumble for the mid-game team fights, we'll see if they go for early dragons to help Jax get some of his stacks out. But anyways, we are going to be getting into the game right now, ladies and gentlemen. Just as a reminder, this is the semifinals for the upper bracket of the Capital One circuit of 2015 fall season. On the blue side, we have gr8b8m8 in the top lane. We have Ganked by Mom on Rumble. Jungle is Hanguk on Jax. Then in the mid lane, Mechlamax on Lux, Psycho Bear with Vayne 80 carry, and Speedy Turtle rearing up the back with Braum. Do you want to go over the red side champions?
Sure thing. Red side, we have in the top lane Mundo, played by a number series that I don't feel like saying. And in the jungle, we have Soul Verge for RP with the jungle Zac. In the mid lane, we have Seksi on the Twisted Fate, and in the bot lane we have KSB on the Lucian and support Morgana for Busty Dice.
Looks like nobody's really going to go for an explosive level 1. I think blue team might have been pretty decent because they have the Jax and the Braum, but on the other side there's Morgana, Twisted Fate, so kind of precarious for both sides.
Yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good idea for both sides. Just playing it safe as possible, not trying to do anything too reckless, and just seeing how the lanes will play out after they get into them.
And also going forward, when you mentioned the Jax split push, obviously as a jungler he does not have teleport, and the top lane doesn't have teleport himself. So I think it's going to be a lot about how well gr8b8m8 can disengage from any fights forced by the red team, but they do have several disengage tools from the Lux and Braum.
Most definitely. The thing about Team Seksi made is their global pressure is so potent, just because of the fact that they have a teleport on their top laner, they have a global ulti in their TF, and then they have the ability to just use those, whereas in the top lane, gr8b8m8 does not have a teleport. In their mid laner, they do not have a quote-unquote global ultimate. Lux ult does reach pretty far. You just have to be very careful about it. But the pressure, the global pressure, I feel like it's a lot stronger with Team Seksi.
Definitely. And we'll see if Lucian can try to get some poke onto Vayne with some Piercing Light, but at the moment they're just going to be trading back and forth, and fairly standard start for both junglers. Jax actually started on the red buff, so he might be going for an early invade onto the enemy side, but meanwhile Psycho Bear gets pretty aggressive against Busty Dice and KSB. They're going to back off.
Oh, well, they're both meeting up right now. Looks like they see each other. The flash is burned. That's a level 2 Jax. I don't know if he wants to fight that. Let's find out.
Yeah, Zach on Soul Bridge for RP. Has level 3. Is Seksi going to be able to lock him down long enough? No, looks like Mechlemax is there to help him out, but that's a Jax flash burned, and he wasted a lot of time there. He's not at level 3 yet.
Seems like everyone was invited to the party, but it was canceled a little bit early. Jax is actually going to be slowed down by this just a little bit. He still does have the ability to catch up and farm. He does have a biscuit over the Zac right now. Zac should be able to take out this red buff nice and easy. We'll see if they decide to gank after this or just back.
I think they probably want to back, and kind of interesting that Zac did go for that triple camp on his bottom side. He went for the Wolves, which gave him the level 3 advantage over Jax. And I think Jax was just expecting to walk over to that red buff and get it as it was dying, but unfortunately for him, bit of a surprise with the new jungle.
Yeah, especially with, like, Riot has changed so many items just because of the fact, well, I like what they've done with the jungling item that has a ward now, and then they took out, I believe they took out the Devourer's item, and with all that stuff, they've really changed the feel of the feel of the jungle, is adding the Rift Herald and then having just different kind of scaling abilities with different champions with the new items.
Yeah, we'll see if they decide to go for any of the kind of different jungle things. Like you have the
gank in the mid lane.
Hunter's pushing. Yeah, the Soul Bridge for RP's going on to Mechlemax. She gets pretty low. Lux does not really burn her summoners though, so in the end, nothing too bad, but Twisted Fate has a bit of an advantage now. And speaking of advantages, 813 on the top side with that Mundo, putting some punishment down.
Oh yeah, had a small deficit, has a small deficit right now in CS, but he's allowed to just bully this Rumble as long as he gets some cleaver damage down, and that E hurts quite a bit if he autos you.
Yeah, you said it, and it's even fine for him if he loses out on some of these trades as long as he doesn't die, because he does have that teleport, and he probably won't be using it much in the early game unless they try to do a coordinated dive with Zac. But even if he trades fairly equally with Rumble, he can use the teleport to just get a sustain advantage in the lane. And Busty Dice now going to be going for Mechlemax, and Mechlemax dodges the first binding. That was crucial.
Quite a lot of damage going down onto that Lux. My goodness. That's definitely going to put TF ahead. He's going to be able to farm this wave up, push it into the tower, and let it die. Whereas Lux has to back after all that pressure.
Oh yeah, and I also want to point out that Jax did actually steal that Raptor camp, so just being a little bit more efficient than Zac, even though the first invade failed. But after that, he has accrued about a 100 gold lead, but slow and steadily. And as the game progresses, he's obviously gonna be much scarier than Jax. Although, or scarier than Zac. Although Zac is really just scary for his engage, and that's what he's preparing to do right now. He's calling it off.
Yeah, I don't think the Morgana with the Black Shield walking directly into them was the greatest way to try and make sure that gank wasn't going to happen, but at the same time, that does put a little bit of pressure on the bot side. We'll see if they do decide to say, yeah, Zac is down here, and then call over their Jax, which he is coming over here. He will be spotted out by that green ward, and we'll see how this lane turns out.
Yeah, they do. But now red side is aware that Jax is down there, and Zac is gonna refrain from ganking the mid lane, possibly? Or he might go for this, but he knows that Jax could be in the area. Okay, he is gonna call it off. Take a bit of a safer route.
It's definitely a good idea, especially because TF already has a lead. You don't want to necessarily push it too much, just because of the fact that an easy lead is some of the best leads you could have. You don't want to try and throw any kind of lead you want, especially in this early game, and then lose it later.
Right. Hanguk is actually a level up against his jungling blob counterpart. And especially when you're playing Zac, when your Elastic Slingshot is your only displacement tool and you use that to engage and you get counter ganked, that can get really painful. Psycho Bear takes a lot of minion damage though and gets punished by KSB for a bit too aggressive there.
Jeez, that Vayne is less than half health. If a binding lands well enough, I think that they can take her out.
Yeah, luckily she does still have cleanse. It was not popped earlier, but once Morgana starts getting higher level, she might just try to flash in, ult, ignite, and bind, because
oh yeah,
that just might be enough damage outright.
Yeah, especially if you have to cleanse one of those abilities. You can't cleanse multiple things, sadly, but if any of those things lock her down for long enough and Lucian can put the DPS down, that would be one dead Vayne.
Oh yeah, we'll see if Speedy Turtle can get some good unbreakable shields to block that damage. And now Soul Verge for RP is going to be bypassing his Krugs, trying to get a gank onto the top side and punish Rumble's teleport. But meanwhile, little known to him, Hanguk is coming on the other side. This might be a 2v2 in the top side.
TF is missing. He looks like he may want to ult top just in case.
Here comes Zac, he goes in, but Jack does a two-man stun in the Rumble ultimate. First blood goes over to Mundo. They're just simply too tanky now. If TF had not ulted in, I think Jax might have been able to finish that off. But the stun card actually hits the minion! Oh,
worth.
Okay, Seksi just with the advanced bad manner tactics, he knew that he was going to get the kill anyways.
Dude, that's the kind of mechanics I wish I had.
Yeah, and we saw that Mechlamax actually pinged that TF was missing right before that happened, and their top lane didn't really respect that as much as it probably should have.
He had been sitting in that kind of corner where his link board was for a while. I feel like an earlier call would have been nice, but at the same time, it seemed like they were very devoted to that counter gank in the top lane, still knowing that TF had his Ummers, had his ulti. But in the end, he did put quite a lot of pressure in that lane and got Mundo a kill and an assist.
Yeah, so they've already been punished for their lack of global pressure. But in terms of trying to deal with that, ganking the top lane is the strategy. Either the top or the mid lane is the strategy you want to go for, because if you try to gank the bot lane, then you're just going to be outnumbered every single time. So they try. I like the idea, but they just weren't really quick enough to respond to the TF danger.
Yeah. Looks like there is still a CS lead in the jungle where Jax does have 42 CS with 2 Zac's 30. Zac has been able to put a little bit more pressure into the lanes with 2 assists, but that farm is something really important for this Jax, especially if he wants to rev up into the late game.
Yeah, he is ahead in farm, although his team doesn't really have quite as much vision control around the mid lane river area, which is one of the reasons why they kind of fell victim to that TF gank. I want to see either Jax or Lux start to buy some pink wards or throw out wards of their own, because right now they don't really have any besides the one yellow trinket that Lux put down. But meanwhile, Zac's going to be going in on the bottom side. Psycho Bear is so low. They did not know Zac was there at all, and Soul Verge for RP has been so effective already.
Now that indeed was a great bait, mate. That
trying to reverse the tables.
Exactly. That Morgana had been standing there begging to be engaged upon and knew that her Zac was right behind her.
Speaking of begging to be engaged upon, Zac, or not Zac, but Hanguk does get the stun onto Mundo, and 813 is going to try to use his ultimate speed to get out of there. Looks like he'll be able to. The ignite was not up from Rumble.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's but a scratch on Mundo in the top lane. As Red Team does take the dragon, Mundo was just safe enough in the top lane after that gank occurred. Looks like he does have a ward down to be able to see this Jax if he does want to come up.
Yeah, and Jax is hungry for more. He's been a little frustrated that he hasn't been able to make these top ganks work. So if you fail, try again. And this is going to be the 3rd gank within the past like 2 minutes. I don't know if he's going to do anything though, because right now he's just wasting time.
They do say that repeating the exact same thing and expecting a different result is insanity, but we'll see what happens this time.
See which phrase comes true. A bit of a catch-22 there. Morgana is on the top side though, and now TF is coming in as well. Hanguk, a great counter-strike, actually dodges the stun from Twisted Fate, and now gr8b8m8 is going to try to scare them off here by going forward, but no, then the Dark Binding comes out as well. He's going to fall again. 0-5 so far in favor of Team Seksi mid.
Jeez, this global pressure from Team Seksi mid. Oh my god, the 1v1 in the bot lane.
Going toward that Lucian, and he had the heal, whereas Vayne running that cleanse. We talked about possibly going for this Braum heal strategy, and that's one of the reasons why AD carries still take it.
Yeah. When your support isn't there to heal you, it's kind of hard to get that advantage if the other AD carry does have heal on himself.
Indeed, and with the not the best engage that blue team has right now that they're starting to fall a little bit behind, both in terms of gold and map pressure, it's going to be more difficult for them going forward to really choose the fights they want to and dictate the game at their own pace. KSB is going to be shoving in this turret. Vayne is 0-2. We'll see if they try to get damage on there.
What I want to see is a little bit more, because of the fact that they have opened up the top lane so well, I want to see a little bit more focus on the early game Rift Heralds that give you so much pressure, especially if you can pick that up and put it on a laner. You get so much ability to just siege in one lane. It's basically a mini Baron buff, and it allows you so much pressure in the early game, whereas before there was a sitting open pit with nothing in it pre-Baron, and now you have this ability with this tiny little guy to get a mini Baron buff to one of your laners.
Speaking of giving buffs to some of your laners, this is a build I have never seen before. Rumble goes with the Banner of Command Rush. And when you're Mundo, you do get the bonus attack damage from your E, but this is the problem with that. You don't have that much trading power. Now gr8b8m8 does get hit by the slow. He's probably going to go down here, unfortunately. No turret to save him. Here comes Hanguk.
Killing spree. I don't think he made a mistake. He has no mana. He gets to jump away, but I don't think Mundo wants to continue on this path. Doesn't have Vision of Lux.
Yeah, so Rumble is trying to be able to get that in that last push to maybe get some global gold for his team and help them get back in the game so far, but it turns around. He wasn't really able to do enough damage to the turret, and although it's really good against champions like Vladimir or something who only use ability power to push, against Mundo he does have that AD steroid, so he can deal with it better than a lot of AP people. And now a three-man gang mid. mechlamax is completely caught unawares.
The flash is blown. Oh my goodness, that is a little too much damage to handle for mechlamax, and that is three-man gank successful in the mid lane.
Yeah, he didn't really have any chance of living there, and that's what kind of comes back to what we were talking about vision control around the mid lane. He had no idea what was happening, and they actually got a deep pink ward in behind the enemy blue buff. But when you're already losing in map control, that's not really where the enemy's going to be rotating from. So we saw him get punished yet again.
Red side's vision control is actually really good. I want to give them the credit that they knew that there was a ward in that riverside, so they went around it. They did not allow themselves to get seen, and they only have two pink wards. Actually, they have two pink wards that they have to deal with, and besides that, most of the vision is just in the bot side coming from the support Braum. You don't really have any other vision besides the two pink wards and the bot side wards, whereas red side has control over where they really want to go, and they can see pretty much everything they need to do after getting so many towers, or 2 towers, and so much pressure from the global pressure they have.
Yeah, and despite the fact that they are behind so far, I do want to commend gr8b8m8 that they actually have been keeping up in CS. And now Hanguk is getting caught out again. Meanwhile, Speed Control and Suckerbear are going to go aggressive here, but the... Oh man, a huge fight in the top lane. Now Seksi gets so low. The Rumble's trying to get over here, but gets pushed back by Let's Bounce. Gets shut down. And meanwhile, the mid lane, 813 trying to just auto-lux to death. She completely blows her load on him, but it's just not enough.
Mundo does go where he pleases. He decided to go into the mid lane and take what he wanted. He's now 4-0-2, TPing into the bot lane, actually.
Yeah, that was actually a really good TP because Blessed Dice was in danger of dying there and then getting having KSB 2v1. So really good response and punishing again for the lack of teleport coming out from gank by Mom. Now Zach is gonna be here. Blue team needs to back off. They know that the entire enemy team is missing.
They have no vision of where he's going from. He's using his elastic. Oh my goodness.
That range. But oh, a good stun from Psycho Bear actually stopped him in his tracks, and now, but Mundo's just taking turret shot after turret shot. This man is too fat. He doesn't even have armor, but his flat health is just so much.
That is ridiculous. 6-0-2 on the Mundo, and dominating so far this game. The pressure that he's put down is ridiculous right now. The Rift Herald actually is being taken by the blue side. To give them a little cushion. They actually ended up giving it to the jungler. That will mean he will have to be in the lane if he wants to spread that buff around. But red side is taking the dragon in the meanwhile.
Yeah, and Jax is really the one you want to start split pushing. I want to take a second to just kind of talk a little bit about how they took that Rift Herald. And Jax, we saw he was just kind of waiting there for Rumble to aggro it. If you hit the eye from the back of the Rift Herald, it does more damage.
Yeah.
And if you actually have a jungle item, you do not close the eyelid. So basically, if you're on somebody like Jax, you can continue to auto that and kill it in about 2 seconds. So very efficient killing of the Rift Herald there. And they traded for the dragon. We'll see if Jax is really able to use that at all. But at least it gives them a little bit more gold.
Yeah. I don't think that the threat of 5 dragons will come. The lead is still pretty hefty in the red side. So I don't think they will want to take that all the way to 5 dragons, especially that giving the Vayne and the Jax time to ramp up will not be a good thing. So the dragons right now I think are just an insurance policy.
Having that option will always be a little helpful. 813 back in this top side end. Rumble, man, he just has to get out of here. He cannot get hit by a single cleaver because that just means instant death.
Yeah, just cleaver after cleaver slowing him down and just watching him kill him is not something that he wants probably.
He's already seen it before, so he'd be reliving his nightmares. And goes for a little bit more of a more standard haunting guys for his second item, so can do a little more damage going into team fights. Unfortunately, because he doesn't really have any control over his lane anymore, he can't really abuse the banner command. Yeah,
and that's definitely appropriate because guys, this Mundo's damage is haunting.
Yeah, he's actually the amount of damage he does with every cleaver is his displayed name. So a little bit of foresight from him there, because he is chunking. And here comes Zach.
They're really trying to force down this top tower while KSB is pushing in the mid lane. They should be able to get this tower. The ult comes down from Rumble. Looks like they stun up the Mundo, but he is basically a big thing of meat. And the ult comes out of Braum, but so far nothing has come from this. KSB does take the mid lane tower and he's roaming top. Meanwhile, the Vayne is in the bot lane, so this will be a 4v5 if they decide to go for this tower.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a pretty good fight in terms of how they use the abilities on the blue side, but Jax was a little scared to be the only one in there, and rightfully so, and without Vayne, they couldn't really make the fight happen, or continue to happen. So I think that was actually very well played by the blue team. They had enough threat to force red team off, and now Vayne's gonna get solo split pushing on this tower, but Lucian meanwhile in the middle lane.
Yeah, they wanna, I feel like if red side wants to get a plus out of this, they really want to engage on this top lane, but they are just kind of playing patty cake in the top lane, trying to get this mid lane push also at the same time, and seeing if they can get anything from it. Looks like they're just trying to back off now. Definitely trying to sweep the vision, get some control back for the top side area.
Right, and honestly, I think if you were a red team in that situation, if you see that the Rumble ult Equalizer and Braum Glacial Fissure are already used, as well as the Lux Final Spark, I think you can actually go for that dive anyways and have Mundo take the first shot, but actually a good flash binding from Morgana to start this off. I don't know if they're going to be able to make this happen. Mundo is taking no damage whatsoever. The Equalizer goes the wrong direction, unfortunately, and that means that red team is going to try to set up for a very early Baron.
It's a ton of pressure put on the blue side because they know that the red side wants to get this Baron. And they've already blown quite a few ultimates just in the skirmish they had earlier. What will happen in this pit?
I don't know.
Like
Lux trying to throw out her binding. Oh, huge!
Oh my
Jump in
goodness,
from
that
Seksi.
knockup.
Cannot block that with the Unbreakable. And now, Hanguk is in danger. Is he going to fall here? Soulburst for RP. A nice final spark from Lux. Hits a lot of people, but I don't know if she has enough damage. Mundo is still invincible, and the Zac has his passive to survive that fight. Without Vayne, they have no way of taking down this meat monster from the top lane.
So many people go so low, but in the end, it is a 2-for-1 in the trade, favored by the red side. That final spark was really crucial. Had to back off, had to make the Lucian and the mid laner Seksi back off, doing tons of damage. But in the end, Mundo just ran all around everybody. The damage came out of that massive knockup from Zac in the beginning of the fight and took out the Vayne and the Jax early on in the fight.
Yeah, you said it. If only Lux had had a little more damage, or if they had been a little bit higher level, maybe they could have tried to turn that around, but I don't think they were really getting through Mundo either way. But like you said, that stopped the Baron, that stopped them from getting aced as well. So
Yeah, definitely a safe fight. That fight definitely could have gone a lot worse if blue side didn't play it as well as they did, but that just gave so much pressure to them after already being down quite a lot. Just losing that well of a team fight, that well fought of a team fight is not good.
Yeah, and we talked about how good, how the engage from red side was pretty good. Now Mundo and Zac both have the dead man's plates to help them get in there even more. And Lucian has hit his 2-item power spike. Vayne goes actually for the rapid fire cannon and static shift, which is a new kind of build that's come out because you can proc both of the energize hits at the same time.
I've seen it quite a lot recently on Vayne, on Caitlyn, just because of the fact that if you can get that attack speed and that many autos off, the proc from both of them does quite a lot of damage, and especially if you go Blade the Ruined King and things like that, you just have so much damage later on in the game. But the early pressure from the red side has slowed her down quite a bit.
Yeah, and actually Seksi uses his ultimate there and tries to lock up Gangbomb, but he does get turned around. Look at that damage. We were talking about how blue team did have a very high damage composition, and now where is Vayne? She's not in this fight though. This could be a win if she was with the team, but Psycho Bear is still just farming that bottom side.
KSB just grew some balls of adamantium and just went ham, just face tanking anything he wanted to, trying to get ganked by Mom, but looks like he did not have enough damage to take him down.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to Twisted Fate's item choice. He built the Lich Bane very early on, which is fine for split pushing, but you're a team that's really focused around team fighting. I mean, you have the Mundo and the Zac engaged with the Morgana follow-up, so I think you want to rush at Zhonya's Hourglass much earlier instead of the 3rd item.
Especially if you're going to engage like that. Like, if you're going to go in and then just almost immediately die, it's probably not the best idea. Looks like Mundo is trying to engage, but Vayne taking a few autos too much. Tried to back off. Don't think anything will happen after that.
Zac and Jax, or TF and Jax were both coming wrapping around, but nothing really happens too explosively in that fight. I do want to point out though that the 6,000 gold lead from about 5 to 7 minutes ago hasn't really gotten much larger.
Yeah.
So that's actually very important for gr8b8m8 going forward.
Definitely. It allows them to kind of stay in a place where they can just farm up, try to play as safe as possible. And earlier, actually, the blue buff did go over to Zac. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but that does mean that TF will not have that blue buff for sieges and will not be able to continuously spam his abilities, especially that he does not have a mana regen item just yet.
Yeah, and he also only has a cooldown reduction from the Lich Bane, so the blue buff would definitely help out with using those Destiny ultimates. And I kind of want to see Morgana go for a Frozen Heart after this. She did get the Zhonya's that allow her to be a little more aggressive, but You have Jax and Vayne on the other side, which are really going to be the main damage coming forth, especially since Rumble has that not very high damage banner command build. So I think somebody should get a Frozen Heart, and I think Morgana might be best suited for that.
Definitely. Oh, looks like an engagement might try and happen. TF does get the, he pulled the blue card.
Oh, Reginald. Now he knows what it's like to be an LCS, but Jax gets a 3-man stun in the middle of the equalizer. Vayne is meanwhile in this fight this time. They're going to be able to chase down Mundo. Maybe? Oh, he's so fast. So a great flash concussive blows comes out from Ramen. Now Seksi goes down for the double kill. The rest of the team is running away, but finally Vayne has showed up. She's only down 10 CS to the Lucian, so she hurts. And now suddenly the tables have turned in terms of vision control. gr8b8m8's gonna start this Baron, and Morgana Mundo off to the side's gonna try to interrupt it if they can. I don't know if they're gonna be able to make it work.
I don't think they'll be able to even try and steal this, really. They should just try and, oh my goodness, that binding was close. But it looks like Mundo has made a bad decision and gets shut down. Looks like everyone got a little piece of that action, and Mundo is now on his first death, 6-1-4, and the Baron goes over to the blue side.
Yeah, 8-1-3, a little indecisive there. You pretty much have two good options you can do. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that cannon minion. But either you sit on one side and just commit yourself to trying to steal it, or you go around and try to use your tankiness to harass them while the Baron's fighting them. And he didn't really do either. He came around to have that option, but he kind of backed off, respecting the Vayne, which is completely fair, but then he stuck around and tried to steal it from that side, which put him in so much danger because he didn't abuse the Baron damage that was going on the enemy team, and then he was just putting himself in an unnecessarily dangerous situation.
Yeah, it seemed like the call was kind of split between Morgana and Mundo. Mundo was off to the side. It seemed like Morgana was just trying to go for the steal the entire time, not really trying to bother them while they're in the pit. Meanwhile, Mundo was around the other side, like you said, and trying to kind of decide whether or not he wanted to stop them or try and steal after a while. And then after the Baron was already smited, Mundo was taken down and he's getting pinged out right now. We'll see if he can get away. He does have that dead man's plate for the movement speed, and looks like he'll just walk away from him.
He is so fast. I was just laughing at Zach trying to kill that banner command minion. But
that minion is huge.
Yeah, pretty much. And now actually Vayne has 3 items before Lucian does, so she's actually stronger than him in terms of power, and they have the Baron buff. They get the mid lane turret. They don't even need to split push. It seems like they're just going to walk forward.
That's siege potential with the Baron buff, and Jax and Vayne is pretty strong. They are able to take this Baron buff and get the money that they need from the towers that they're getting. The towers have actually evened up now, and they will be poising for the dragon, which will come up in 10 seconds.
They don't want to go for the dragon, though, because look at the red side. They're just going straight down the middle lane. And they're really able to get that tower for free. In part, actually, due to the banner command, because Zach spent so much time in the top side that he wasn't there for when they're sieging the inner turret. And because Zach wasn't there to be the big initiator, that kind of let Jax and Vayne walk up without being punished for their short range. But looks like they're actually split up. TF is on the other side here, so he's going to be in a bad spot. Rumble ultimate does come out, and now they're all focusing the Mundo. Seki's coming from the other side. Psycho Bear's going to try to peel off and deal with him. This fight is going so back and forth. Oh, man, a 4-man knockup from Zach. He does get him, and now that's going to be the pop. Oh, Hanguk is still alive, though. He is trying to wreck through the enemy team. Jax is online. I think he has a Sated Devour by this point, definitely. He gets a double kill, an ace for gr8b8m8.
My goodness, that late game potential in those 2 heavy carries is coming out, and Jax and Vayne just tearing through the entire team. Vayne left behind in the backline, just allowed to put down the damage, and Jax is just so powerful at this point. He just jumps on people and Goomba stomps them into the ground.
Goomba stomps them indeed, and I do want to give gr8b8m8 a special shout out because he started this game off so far behind. He was getting absolutely bodied. 6-0 Mundo. He was 0-3 himself. But now he's come back in the game. He's been doing so much damage in these fights, and he even had a missed equalizer earlier on. But the past few ones have been very relevant. Meanwhile, Twisted Fate's coming in from the... that's Mundo teleporting in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Twisted Fate teleported in from the
down.
mid lane, but Twisted Fate isn't there yet. His W actually might run out before he's able to use it. No, he does get Megalomax, but oh! Looks like somebody's playing a dangerous game. Gets an extra heal out. My goodness.
That call was a little too aggressive for me. A little hypey there on that call. Ended up trading 2 for none. An ult and a TP. I don't know what that call was, but I don't think Team Seksi Mid wants to make another one like that.
Yeah, you said it. And now, actually, blue team has both of these side waves pushing out slowly. So all they have to do is continue to pressure this middle lane. And if you wait about a minute and a half, that top lane's going to hit that turret. And that bottom lane's going to hit the bottom turret. So that's going to give gr8b8m8 so many options if they just keep the pressure in these lanes and prevent red team from going to either side. Additionally, if you have the Rumble, try to put his banner command on one of these side lane minions. Okay, never mind. It is on cooldown, but
yeah.
I do want to see some pressure coming out. Oh no, blue team's all going back right now.
Yeah.
The potential rotations.
Looks like a poor backing time decision for the blue side, but we will see how they decide to push out these lanes because they are still pushing in their favor. And right now, looks like they're just all trying to head mid right now, trying to, I guess, divert their attention from red side from the side lanes because they are pushing against them. But we'll see how much they can get from this. Baron is ready to spawn in about 1 minute. And we'll see what the decision of... Oh, looks like Braum is trying to go for a small engage, but he does get stunned up. His shield blocks quite a lot of the damage, and just kind of a little warning shot there from Braum.
Yep. And Mundo did build a little greedy here because in the mid-game teamfights, he really wasn't being threatened at all. Part of that, though, was because Vayne wasn't even there. And so he instead went for the Warmog's armor instead of a Thornmail rush. And didn't really respect the damage Vayne was able to come out with. And now he doesn't have the Thornmail yet. He's also building a Ruby Crystal, so I don't know if he's even building that yet. He might be going for a Randuin's Omen to reduce that critical strike damage, but I think he really wants a Thornmail.
Yeah, after all that health stacking, like you would imagine, he has 4,261 health. And no Thornmail. Looks like blue side does have to back because the red side's just charging down the mid lane.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't really keep the pressure in the mid lane when they tried to rotate to the turret, so that just means that Team Seksi Mid gonna try to do what they can here. Mundo walks up and smacks the turret with his own cleaver. Rebel Ultimate comes out. Look at that damage! The entire backline is already halfway dead, and now Lux tries to use her final spark, but Busty dies with a great flash, being able to dodge it. Soul Bridge for RP. Gonna try to get out there with his elastic slingshot. That means that they can't really turn back on the fight yet. And now blue team has the entire map control. Jack stayed in the top side. Hanguk is gonna be trying to split push now. All they need to do is stop the ports. I think Mundo's gonna be able to get away,
gonna be taken down. That isn't right. Oh, the Zanya stops him. Will she live? No. The Flame Splitter does take her down, and Jax is actually taking this inhibitor.
Oh man, he's just going for KFB! He does so much damage, and now Popsy comes back to try to get out of here. Here comes Soul for Bird for RP. Meal on the bottom side. Lux finally picks up Twisted Fate. This is getting really chaotic, and they have a huge minion wave on the bottom side as well. They're just pressuring all sides of the map.
This is a ridiculous amount of pressure coming out. After all that global pressure we talked about, it's blue side taking down an inhibitor in the top lane and forcing down this bot lane tower. Looks like they have been counter engaged on and will be pushed away from it, but Vayne is allowed to take that inhibitor. And now red side is the one on their heels trying to figure out what went wrong, because blue side now has 64,000 gold to the 58,000 that the red side has. 3 turrets down and only up in dragons. What happened?
Yeah. That was so chaotic. They blue team managed to get back to save their inhibitor, and Jax sacrifices himself to be able to cause chaos in the enemy lines. We saw Zach actually engage there, but if you looked at the champions that he was trying to engage on, they weren't really great tower pushers, and Vayne was on the top side, which meant that Mundo or Zach could probably have just continued to wave clear on the bottom side. And I think you should have diverted your other resources to try to deal with that Bane on the top, because she just got that inhibitor for free.
It looks like TSM wants to have another talk with their Chaos and see if they can get it out of there, because they have so much pressure now. With this Baron has respawned, blue team takes down the dragon and just is allowed to do all this stuff because they have the jungle warded. They have the pressure with 2 down inhibitors on the red side. And they also have a super strong Jax pushing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa!
Just all over the place right now trying to get away from this Vayne.
Yeah, bit of a lazy condemn. She doesn't really get the stun. Although that being said, it is Mundo, so he does have reduced or increased tenacity. Or I think he still has it on his W.
Yeah, he
unless
has
they took it off. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so he might have gone out anyways, but as we say that they do start the Baron, gonna back off a little bit.
That Baron does go down pretty fast, though. It's already less than half health. TF does pop his ult and sees everyone in the pit. Let's see if they can dig at it.
Yeah, a nice smite from Jax. Keeps that secured. And Braum's ultimate not really doing much because it didn't have a ward on to really spot out that top side of the Baron pit, but in the end, works out for them anyways, because Lucian was still trying to deal with the minions, and Mundo the same.
The way they use this Baron will probably decide how this game will go. The amount of pressure that they can put in each lane is pretty ridiculous. Having that banner command, having the Baron minions, and the ridiculously farmed Vayne and ridiculously farmed Jax. This is one scary siege comp that can happen right now.
Yeah, you said it. And I don't really agree with Morgana going for that lock of the Iron Solare. We talked about how they needed to reduce the attack speed of their enemy. And the locket is a very important item to get against the Rumble, but that's an item that you can divert to Zac. And instead, Zac is building just random assortment of tank items. He hasn't finished one actually himself, but I think you want to divert that Aegis to Zac to be able to get just that frozen heart attack speed reduction, because Vayne and Jax are absolutely destroying these team fights.
These structures are no match for this Vayne and Jax comp. This is pretty ridiculous how fast they can take them down and not really take anything or get anything returned, because red side is just trying to engage onto them, but they have so many shields and so much health by now. The damage coming out, my goodness. Morgana has found herself in a sticky situation, and Mechlamax is on a rampage. I think this might be the end of the game after all these. Oh my god, Lucian wants to get the
KSB wants it!
He's so
oh man.
tunneled. Double kill for Vayne. Looks like Mundo went a little too far in, and that will be a win picked up for the blue side. GG, ladies and gentlemen.
Very well played by the blue team. They are able to get away with diverting their Vayne to the bottom side several times. And I actually mentioned in the mid game how red team probably could have afforded a turret dived 1 or 2 of those times, and they didn't. And that allowed the greater scaling team composition to come out from the blue side. Very well played by gr8b8m8.
Yeah, that early game did not deter them at all, really. That pressure that was brought on by Mundo and just the early game potential from the red side didn't stop them at all. It allowed them to just kind of, after a while, the gold lead kind of subsided. Nothing was really happening for a while. It allowed Vayne to farm and also the Jax to farm. And after that, the ramping up of both of their abilities just allowed them to push lanes, get vision, get pressure on the dragon and Baron, and allowed them to just force themselves into the base of Team Seksi mid. And after all of that, that was just game 1.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty exciting. Looks like Ganked by Mom is actually going to the bathroom, so we'll have a short break to kind of talk about changes going into the next game. But before we do that, I want to point out we criticized Vayne for going for that, or I criticized Vayne at least when we talked about the decision over with the Braum heal Vayne cleanse.
Oh yeah.
and because it did cost them in the laning phase. But later on in the game, we actually saw Vayne go for more damage items, and she never had to go for that QSS, whereas Lucian had to invest a good amount of money into that item, and that really set back his damage, whereas Vayne was just able to completely soar above him.
Oh yeah. She after just farming up and getting that strong, that cleanse came into effect after being able to just sit in team fights and just constantly put down damage. And if she needed to, she could pop the cleanse. She had a shield from Lux. She also had quite a lot of heal from Jax just jumping into the entire team. And her support allowed her to put up a shield because Braum is the strongest.
Yeah, pretty much. I going forward to the next game, I think they might want to rethink, or I think that Team Sexy Mid might want to rethink some of their pick ban priorities, because they went for that first rotation Mundo Zac, and while that did, I mean, Mundo did play very well, to be fair,
Yeah.
but I think revealing that Zac earlier on as a champion that can't really duel you in the jungle kind of allowed Hanguk to get away with a very hyperscaling Jax. And so if they want to pick something like Elise or Kindred that are very strong earlier on in the game at skirmishes that might pressure the enemy team away from those types of scaling compositions, if they're still confident that they can get early leads.
Yeah, most definitely. Just like going after that Mundo and just the strong early game was originally really smart, but having the ability to just pick a Vayne into that solid tank line that you see, and knowing that, hey, I can play Vayne safe enough until I can farm up and just tear down these health sacks that you're gonna just see later on in the game, was the thing that allowed the red side to say, oh my goodness, we have messed up later on in the game, because Vayne ramped up, had the Blade of the Ruined King, had the attack speed, and had the peel with the Jax, with the cleanse, and definitely not something you want to see in the next game, especially if you're in a series.
Oh yeah, but Tom Kench ban does come out. We did see that as the first ban for Team Sexy Mid last game as well. But Jinx coming out to try to keep KSB off of that champion. Guess they don't want to deal with the variety of things Jinx is useful for.
Yeah,
look at that Jax ban.
Yeah, that Jax ban came out pretty fast after seeing what he could do. KSB had been playing a lot of Jinx and Tristana during this tournament. After the 80 carry reworks and damage items that came out, I would not expect that much to come from Jinx. Jinx is always really strong, always has been really strong with the resets and her ability to move around in team fights. But I feel like there are more contested picks really you could be going for.
Yeah, and the Threshbread comes out again from gr8b8m8, and Busty Dice, that is his most played champion. I do remember that now. So just wanting to kind of keep it the same. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Although you could argue that there were a few things that they could probably improve on that from last game. Not going down 6,000 gold earlier on might be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that you definitely want to avoid this time around. The Malphite does come back out. It looks like the bans will stay pretty much the same for both sides. I don't know what that will mean for the first pick, though. Let's see what comes out this time.
Yeah, there will be no rock solid coming out so far, but yeah, gonna lock that in.
Yeah, we're not allowed to smell what the rock is cooking this time. But
one thing
Lee Sin is picked.
It is dangerous to first pick Lee Sin, because if you give the other team Elise, you can very easily use the stun into his kick and she can out trade him. But ooh, they're having the Kindred also. Braum was gr8b8m8's first pick last time, and interesting to see that Team Sexy Mid doesn't really prioritize that either.
I mean, as long as you know that the heart is the strongest muscle, what else do you really need besides?
All you need is love, man.
We'll see. The hover's coming out from Hanguk. I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable with a lot of the things that he's hovered, but we will see what he decides to go with. A lot of junglers have been hovered over. Looks like Hecarim is the most recent one. We'll see if he decides to go with this.
2
Heavy
seconds.
engage.
And
Oh.
no, he's going back to the Devour.
I mean, both of them have really good engage potential. Xin Zhao just decides to dive into the team, and if his ult allows you to knock back their carries, they will be knocked back into the team if he does it well enough. That is super heavy engage compared to what was the last game? Oh wait, well Jax is the same, pretty much.
Well,
and if they allow him to get that strong, I don't think they want to see a Xin Zhao diving on their backline. So the Alistar pick is a very smart pick. You can just headbutt them away.
yeah.
But we will
Also
see
good
if
in lane.
they're allowed to ramp up this time.
Yeah, I wonder what they're gonna go for that next rotation. They, I think they probably want to do a safer pick, like for an AD carry. The Sivir leaves them a lot of options open, but she can get bullied in lane by the new Caitlyn.
Yeah.
Which could be coming out.
Yeah, that if they go with the Sivir, that other build that we saw earlier, like the Vayne build that was applied for the blue side earlier, could be a similar build coming out if they decide to go with the Caitlyn to counter that Sivir, because Caitlyn does want to get that attack speed and get those autos off, and her range is pretty ridiculous in lane that will allow her to bully out that Sivir.
If we get a Teemo pick coming in, I will give Mechlamax a mystery gift skin.
I feel like that is a tempting offer, and I feel like if Mechlamax does go for it, I would not be sad one bit.
I mean, I think that's worth it. You get a free skin. You wouldn't get the Triumphant Rise probably if you get knocked out by picking it, but
Agreed. Oh my, looks like they're staying with similar picks right now. Well, these are just hovers, but Lux and Vayne were played by gr8b8m8 before. Looks like they are locked in.
I want to point out that Twisted Fate is still open, so he could go for that again. Lissandra is also very good for tower dives, because Sivir, one of her big advantages over Vayne is that she can wave clear so much faster. So if you just keep Vayne pinned under her turret and you have good roaming, a roaming top laner or a teleport, or teleport top laner and a roaming mid, you might be able to punish that. And Lee Sin is pretty aggressive early on, so he is a champion that could go for early kills like that.
Now all they have left really is to pick their jungler and mid laner. We'll see what they decide. I mean, I'm not going to say anything prematurely because that Lee Sin could go top. I'm not going to say anything really besides that, but looks like...
I've seen it before.
I've seen it. I agree, me too. Looks like the Nara and the Lissandra picked up for the blue team.
Yeah, pretty decent Nara, pretty decent split pusher. He will have that teleport. We'll see if ganked by Mom decides to go for Ignite again and sold Bridge for RP. He again back on a very strong engaged champion. This time Lissandra rather than Twisted Fate. See, this time he doesn't have to build Zhonya's first if he doesn't want to, because he has his own Zhonya's.
Yeah, there you go.
He might want to anyways, but
you never know. I mean, that one time where Seksi went in with his ultimate and just got obliterated might have taught him a lesson. We'll see if this time he does decide to build Zhonya's before going balls deep, but we'll see. We'll see. Because Zhonya's on the Lissandra is not necessarily a bad thing, because that just allows you to ult other people as well this time. But you do have that self-Zhonya's ability, whereas TF you do not. But we'll see how well they can execute this, because they have a lot of potential to just go on to single targets, and then that Gnar ultimate will be crucial later on in the game. And that Rumble is picked up by GBM.
Yeah.
In the
former Janair mid laner going for that Ignite pressure. We'll see if he goes for that. Guess I shouldn't talk about summoner spells until it's completely locked in. But I don't know if he's going for it or not just yet. But yeah. See if they decide to do anything very aggressive, especially with I talked about a turret dive. I mean, you have the Alistar, so level 6, Alistar Lissandra with a Gnar teleport, that's pretty much one of the best setups you can get.
Yeah, that's actually a really good setup. I feel like the changes that Blue Side has made this time have allowed them to work around a little bit more, and purple side has pretty much stick with the same kind of composition. We'll see how it works out.
Indeed. So the game is going to be loaded in. I can take off the spoiler banners real quick, so now we all can talk about them. Going back to this Cleanse Vayne heal Braum.
We did criticize it before, really, but the cleanse late game is a great idea. Early game, if you are allowed to use that heal while your AD carry is in the lane and make sure he doesn't get 1v1 against the other lady carry, it will be a good tool to have. And this time it looks like GBM is going to stick with the teleport and wanting to keep up with the global pressure that they had lost in the early game before with this Ignite Rumble. And now the ability with the teleport Rumble allows him to have a little bit more time.
I do want to point out that the blue team does have more lockdown than last time. You have the Lissandra, and when she ults in, I mean, that's comparable to a TF ultimate, but you have the better follow-up with the Alistar if you just want to dive onto Psycho Bear. But that being said, it is difficult because you do have a triple threat, or maybe even 4-threat team composition once Hanguk, if he goes for that Devour again. But yeah, I think it's really up to blue team to see if they can get some of those mid-game leads off with those globals, or with that one global teleported. No, actually, Gameplay Mom does go for teleport this game. I lied.
Yeah, I was speaking of GBN's TP earlier, and I feel like this will allow them to just finally be able to help out the lanes, because we did see Mundo last game have a really good TP in the bot lane and really get really strong early on, and TP on the GBN, on the Rumble's GBM, or GBN's Rumble, will allow him to help out lanes like Vayne, Braum, which if we get ahead would be super scary, the Lux in the mid lane, and then allow him to, even if he needs to, get back to his lane early, make sure he gets wave management down, and even be allowed to have at least a little bit more pressure than he did last game in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, and Lutana does point out in chat that getting cleansed on Vayne this game specifically isn't necessarily the best. You probably want just to grab the exhaust on Braum instead, because you can just cleanse the CC from Lissandra and kind of get out of there, because the rest of the CC isn't really like cleansable. I mean,
yeah.
You have the Gnar ult, I guess, or the Alistar headbutt, which technically you can, but a lot of that isn't really just a stun like you would get from the binding, or stun from the card and then the hold from the binding. So see if Psycho Bear does get punished for that more so than he did last game.
Yeah, definitely. This game is completely, it's almost entirely the same for a great bait
just swapping out the jacks.
Exactly. But the difference in the team comp for Team Seksi Mid will pose something of a challenge for Great Bait Mate to see how they react to a different team comp with different champions and a different, almost a different play style. But
yeah, I think in terms of win conditions, it's fairly similar, because you want to be very aggressive, kind of middle of the game-ish already. You still have a very engage-heavy mid laner, so he'll be able to start off the fights, and then Gnar will kind of be able to just do damage the whole fight. A little bit more of an emphasis on the Gnar ultimate compared to Mundo. But that will also, I think, allow him to have a little bit more of an impact in the fights if he's confident he can get another lead in the laning phase. But anyways, we are going to get into Game 2. Let me just update the score right now. There it is. Into the Game 2 of the best-of-3 semifinals for the Capital One Circuit Baron bracket. Coming off on the blue side now is going to be Team Seksi Mid. In the top lane, they have 813 on Gnar. Then in the jungle, Soul Verge for RP, playing Lee Sin, very aggressive this time. Then in the mid lane, you have Seki on Lissandra with Ignite, very aggressive. KSP on Sivir, and Busty Dice coming up on the Alistar.
And on the red side, we have Great Bait Mate. In the top lane, we have Ganked by Mom on his patented rumble. In the jungle, we have Hanguk on the Xin Zhao. In the mid lane, we have Mechlamax once again on the Lux. And in the bot lane, we have Psycho Bear and Speedy Turtle repping the Vayne and the Braum yet again. And a little bit of an early invade with the red side. It's like it is seen by Sivir, and they will back off.
Yeah, just kind of checking it out. They put that ward in the tri-bush earlier on, but don't really put any around the Krugs. So nothing really done. Speed Turtle are going to be able to regen that up. And Lutano mentioning that Bussy Dice hates Alistar. So maybe that's why he's running Ignite. He wants to be a carry now. Gonna get killed himself, but yeah, we'll see if he's still able to perform on that champion. He was pretty decent last game on the Morgana, but it was not enough to really help his team pull through.
The level 5 mastery comes out from KSB.
Oh man,
asserting his dominance
personal.
in the lane. He does take a trade that is in the favor of Vayne. We'll see if he decides that. Ooh, a Q does tag him. He's taking quite a lot of damage for this mastery that he's displaying so far.
Yeah, once Bussy Dice gets level 3, the Triumphant War should heal him up if he doesn't take much more harass, but it's always good if you're Vayne right here, getting early mind game lead where you're out trading the enemy Sivir. And oh my god, Bussy Dice actually goes in, instantly level 2, flash pulverized into the headbutt. They're going to go on to Psycho Bear.
The flash and the heal comes out from Vayne.
Yeah, they pop the Ignite fairly late when Psycho Bear is already almost out of there, but it does reduce the effectiveness of the heal. Actually, no, it doesn't. That's why you run the heal on the Braum, because Grievous Wounds now only prevents the healing for self-heal. So
yeah,
they do actually get full use of that heal there. And pulling through already.
Totally outplayed us, just like totally unsafe. Good job, Braum.
I do want to point out that when Alistar pulverizes, there's that. Oh, and meanwhile, he's going back in!
That combo.
Oh my gosh, instantly going on to Psycho Bear. He does not want them to milk him at all, but meanwhile, Seksi going aggressively. This blue team wants revenge.
Most definitely. Bussy might hate being on the cow, but I think the cow loves him because these combos have been awesome so far. The flash Q and the WQ coming in from Bussy Dice have allowed them to take so much damage onto this Vayne.
Yeah, and I want to point out that when you use Pulverize on Alistar, there's actually like a little bit of a delay where you land and you still can't move.
Yeah.
So if Psycho Bear was, he might have not wanted to burn the cleanse, but there's nothing else you could really burn on at this point in the game anyways. He could have used the cleanse and flashed out of the Alistar headbutt and maybe saved himself a little bit of harass or the threat of dying. But all in all, it's not really a big deal. He still gets away fairly fine.
Yeah, the CS leads in each lane have allowed them to get a slight lead on gr8b8m8, but Team Seksi mid so far just content to farm. Looks like a gank in the mid lane, also counter gank from the other side. Oh my goodness, the amount of damage comes out.
Holy moly.
Soul Verge for RP gets taken down. Slight miscalculation on the amount of damage that Lux could put down with Xin Zhao.
Lee Sin just getting a little too greedy there, well, a little too eager rather there. He throws out the Sonic Wave, but Lissandra's going in and has guaranteed lockdown, so there's no reason why you'd need to use the Sonic Wave from a distance. And now Hanguk does get that 1 assist. Lux has a kill so far, and again, he's going in for an aggressive invade to steal some of this jungle.
I think Hanguk has so far played really well in both games with his jungling. He's been able to take out camps from Team Seksi mid and allowed himself to rev up and farm up. Getting off some early ganks this time is definitely going to help out because last game was not the best for early game pressure, but already has an assist to his name, taking out some camps for Team Seksi mid, and just having so much better of an early game in this match.
Indeed. Especially on Xin Zhao, who is more aggressive than, or more powerful than Jax very early on.
Yeah.
I do very much respect that because a lot of times if you see people playing the Devour jungle, they get into the mindset, I can just farm my jungle and I'll be stronger than the enemy, so I don't really need to make plays happen. But Hanguk, that is not how he's really been playing. I mean, he's seizing advantages for himself and denying them from the enemy jungler at the same time.
Yeah, most definitely. It looks like in the top lane, Gnar actually has no more pots, whereas Gank by Mom has been able to pretty much bully him around. He has been taking... Gnar has had to take worse trades and use his potion where GBM still has a pot, and really just all he needed was the boots of speed, and in that lane is allowed to push Gnar into the turret every single time he has a chance.
Yeah, and because boots of speed only cost 300 gold now, you can get 4 potions off of that. And it does actually help against the Gnar lane because Gnar always pretty much maxes the boomerang. And that'll allow you to just simply flat out dodge damage and avoid taking autos because you can get in and out much more quickly. I do want to point out Busty Dice has a level 5 mastery on Alistar, so I don't know if he just hates himself or what, but he's played that champion a lot.
Oh, looks like the top lane will be counter gank. That is a lot of damage. It looks like Gnar messes up his jump, but
yeah,
not enough engage potential from the... Oh my god, that flame spitter damage.
Dude does a lot of damage there. Not the best equalizer. It was pretty good because obviously it hits them initially and then it also hits them getting out of there, but it does force the enemy Gnar to go back and miss a lot of CS, so he will be getting some advantage from that. Gnar's teleports up though, so not the end of the world.
Yeah. Xin Zhao was there just kind of waving high as GBM went in, but didn't have enough time to get close enough and get really a gank off in the top lane.
Yeah, it looks like now that Xin Zhao does have his jungle item, they're going to be going for the strategy at the... Look at that damage!
Jeez.
Rift Herald just dies. Falls over dead. I'm sorry, man, but... That was,
Yeah, that amount of damage that you can do with the eye being open is pretty ridiculous. But they did end up giving the buff to Xin Zhao. He doesn't really have the ability to go into a lane this early, which will kind of hinder that. Like they gave them both gold, but I feel like it would have been better if they gave it to Rumble or maybe even had Lux come up and take it. But I guess Xin Zhao gets to sit on the Rift Herald buff until it runs out.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, especially when you look at Gnar. One of his weaknesses against Rumble, he doesn't have as much wave clear. He is able to hit several minions with his boomerang, but it's just not comparable to the Flame Spitter. And if you have the Rift Herald, you might be able to punish Gnar by shoving it into turret. Meanwhile, Speedy Turtle getting engaged on by Busty Dice. A lot of trades going back and forth in there.
Definitely, the bot lane has just been allowed to be super aggressive with his Alistar pick because KSB is allowed to get this CS lead, still hasn't used his biscuit, and they've just been going pretty much ham every chance they get on this Vayne and Braum lane.
Trying to deny her as much as they can, but it's frankly not working out. She's still pretty much exactly even in CS. And I'm a little sad Gank by Mom didn't go for his patented banner rush, but Gnar is an auto attack champion, so I guess that kind of makes sense. It would have been fun though.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit of sense there coming up by GBM, but he does still have the Haunting Guys and does quite a lot of damage.
Oh, meanwhile, Lee Sin does get spotted out though, and now he's gonna go in. 813 does not get the last boomerang, so
He will not be able to change, but Xin Zhao is sneakily
oh
in there.
man, here comes Soul's Verge for RP.
No.
He gets engaged on, but a good Dragon's Rage does land before Xin Zhao's third hit does a great ultimate from Lux. Nice communication telling her to come up there.
Most definitely, and they knew Lee Sin had burned his flash and knew that he had used his W. He didn't have any other real chance to get away, and that call was nice.
Especially walking through the equalizer. It's so hard to get out of that unless you have flash, but he already used it, so sad days.
Yeah, that feel when you don't have flash anymore.
when you use it and you fall right into the enemy's double ultimate combo. That's always sad. Another double knockup from Bussy Dice. He has been landing these a lot. Not really doing anything with it.
Mode.
He just wants to flex his udders in this lane.
So far, the bot lane has been quite comical. We'll see what this can transpire after all this aggro coming out from
we kind of foresaw this in the champion select. Sivir has so much wave clear that they've been shoved into the turret the whole time, but Lissandra hasn't even left her lane, and Lee Sin, Gnar trying to gank by Mom, but not really in and out.
It looks like another gank where Sin Zhao just kind of walks in, waves high, and walks away. But meanwhile, Lee Sin does pick up the Scuddler for the bot side. That will give him some vision control and is looking to try and maybe gank Mechlamax, who has 2 kills after those great calls.
Here comes Mechlamax, burns the flash preemptively. We'll see if Soul Verge for RP decides to come back, but he hasn't really been mid that often this game, so far that flash very well used. No real reason to risk it there by not using it.
Looks like very similar builds in the bot lane, having the exact same items besides that one dagger that Vayne does have, but both pick up the static shiv, both just really content with CSing really with some engages from the cow from now and then, but so far it's just been pretty much a farm lane, allowing them both to just ramp up.
Oh man, 813 actually goes on to gank by Mom and tries to use the Gnar to knock him into that far wall, but he was not quite far enough, and that actually saves Rumble in the end, unfortunately. Nice vision control by gr8b8m8 this game, however. They just had a ward expire there, I believe, but in the last game they didn't really have much vision around the mid lane. Now they have been focusing it much more in general. KSB gonna be getting engaged on. He actually pops a spell shield early, so I don't think that block be condemned, but that does allow Braum to get his ult off. No kills really happen. Now Gank Bomb, I'm gonna turn it on to Gnar. He just pops him with that hyper.
Meanwhile, in the bot side of the map, Hanguk did flash and try and engage onto the Alistar, but Alistar just kind of walks away as if it was a mosquito bite. And oh my goodness, Seksi and what is that? Soul Verge for RP take down the Lux in a unfortunate situation where Lux was alone in the jungle.
Yeah, really good communication from Team Seksi mid in that skirmish there, because Lux came up to try to use her ultimate to finish off Gnar, but Lee Sin and Lissandra completely caught her out in the roam, so they're able to get a turret off of that. Are they going to go for the Rift Scuttler afterwards? Looks like they're just going to go back.
Yeah, looks like this time they're not trying to press for so much. 2-2 in kills, 20 to 20,000 in the gold. Looks like one turret is actually in the favor for the blue side, but red side did pick up a dragon in return.
KSB, that looked like it hurt a bit. He did spell shield the concussive blows, but Psycho Bear does so much damage now that he has his static shiv.
Definitely. And like you said, he does have quite a lot of wave clear, but he is still losing in the CS because of the fact that Vayne is such a good auto-attacking champion, and if you know how to CS well enough, you can almost out-CS a Sivir like what is happening right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, Vayne has rushed that static shiv, so they've lost their window a bit in terms of being able to out-shove her outright. So, red team is going to be able to get another Rift Herald, but again, it goes on to Hanguk, and that does help his Devourer stacks. I don't know, I don't remember specifically how many Rift Herald gives. But it looks like they're going to try to go for that late game instead of that tower pushing.
It does help with Devourer stacks, but I feel like most teams just should take away the fact that giving it to a laner is a lot better, I feel. Like, the Devourer stacks will come, but the pressure that comes from a mini Baron buff is a lot greater than... Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was a really nice ultimate from Xin Zhao, and he still has his charge up right quick, but Lux!
With the fadeaway stun takes out the Gnar.
With style, Mechlamax just comes out with the second game on Lux. So far, a 100% win rate. I mean, I guess it goes for the rest of his team as well this series, but 3-1 so far.
Let's see if he picks up a Magi's. I want to see it. Let's see it, Max. He has been doing well enough, I feel, in the early game to warrant a Magi's. Let's see if he plays safe enough and decides to go for that, but I don't think he will. He's really just wants to play safe, I guess, especially against Lysandra, who is building Roa and will want to scale long into the late game.
Yeah, and unfortunately, blue team is losing a lot of these skirmishes, and Alistar does have the mobility boots if he wants to try to roam, but every time he leaves the lane, KSB gets completely burst out by the Vayne trade. So, oh, here comes Lysandra, the argument, going to be able to go on the Psycho Bear. A nice chain of the CC. Where's the cleanse comes out? She actually does manage to flash away. Now, Solver's for RP gets 1 kill off the backside. Here comes Rumble. He is completely by himself, though. Lux comes in with an ultimate of her own, but everyone came in at separate times.
Definitely. It looks like a 2 for none in that trade. They did spend quite a lot of Vayne and she lived, but at the same time, a awkward TP by GBM and Speed Turtle just got taken down really early in that fight. GBM was TP'd into quite a lot of CC and was taken down, knocked away by the cow, and then taken down with the damage by Sivir and Lee Sin.
Yeah, and despite having that cleanse, she did still die, like Lutano pointed out. It's not maybe the best spell against this team composition, so that does mean that Team Seksi Mid are able to siege a 2,000 gold advantage, swinging the game back over.
We will see how they take this gold lead into the later parts of the game, because they had quite the lead earlier in the last game and weren't allowed to just steamroll through because of the fact that they did have this scaling composition. They did have the Vayne. They did have a Jax, which is now a Xin Zhao, but he's still going for the Devourer. Looks like he might even go for the Queen Sue's Rage Blade.
Oh, man.
I've seen quite a lot of that item, and it's very scary.
It is really scary indeed. Xin Zhao doesn't even... Well, ability power does affect his charge damage.
Yeah, it does.
But just getting the max stacks buff is so huge, especially now that he has Sated Devour. They went for that Rift Herald for the stacks, and now GBM is going to go onto a two-man stun from 813. Now he's getting knocked up by Hanguk, though. Turned out to be a little too much damage.
The only magic resist he had was the null magic mantle he was sitting on, so that flame splitter ripped through him.
Yeah.
Especially just having that Xin Zhao backup just took him down.
Yeah, the Haunting Guy's Sorcerer Shoes doing work there, and once Hanguk finishes off the Skinsu's Rage Blade, he does have enough money to finish it right now, so that is going to be really scary for the entire rest of the game. Xin Zhao is never not going to be a threat now.
Yeah, that item just allowed so many junglers to come out of the woodwork and say, I can be relevant now, especially with Xin Zhao, especially at this point, having 78 CS, no deaths, 4 assists, and a Sated Devourer finished.
We talked about the merits of using the Herald buff in the lane versus getting on the jungler, and while I think he might have been able to get the turret if he had gotten it in the lane, I do want to give him credit because he abused that spike when forgetting the Sated Devour stack pretty quickly. So he did use that because of the decision. He used the decision he made to its fullest advantage. So I want to give him credit there. We'll see who goes for this dragon, however. It looks like Vayne is still not in this fight, so if blue team were to engage now, they might be in a little bit of trouble.
They don't have that much vision around the dragon pit. They do have that pink ward in the tri-bush and are threatening the mid lane because they see that no one is really there.
Yeah, they're just gonna go and kill the tower. Meanwhile, red team isn't even starting the dragon. Xin Zhao could probably take it right away. And okay, he does aggro the dragon now, but this is after blue team has taken the turret, so they give up one turret for nothing. Are they gonna give up more? But a huge equalizer in the entire choke point. Lux gets an enormous ultimate off as well. That is not what Team Seksi Mid wanted to go.
Oh my goodness, an ace for none. That coordination from the red side was perfect. The ultimate from the Sins out knocked everyone away and just had the carries in the hands of the Vayne and the Lux, putting down so much damage and taking it down so early.
My God.
That equalizer was dirty. In that kind of situation, you really don't want to be lined up in that part of the jungle with a rumble in your face.
Yeah, we wanted a Rift Herald buff on the lanes. How about a full-on Baron buff 21 minutes into the game?
This is starting to be quite scary after that team fight. Losing the entire team and the Baron. They had such a even kind of game before, but now red side has the ability to take more turrets after being down 4 and just be able to scale even more into this game. Their Vayne is 2-0-1, silently just having this small lead the entire time. And Lux is 5-1-3.
Yeah. And remember when blue team did actually seize the lead, that was when they made the dive onto the bot lane turret with their Lissandra and their Alistar dive composition. But they only did that once, and tunneling into that one choke point really cost them there. Are they going to be able to get this turret? Looks like Rumble and Braum are coming to the rescue. Not going to quite be able to get this one, but they just want to try to wait out this Baron buff.
We'll see what the red side can do. They really want to transition this Baron buff into towers, into global gold, and use it for its potential. They want to get that gold in their favor again. They already have a 2,000 gold lead and want even more.
Yeah, red team's gonna start to ward their flanks, and Shinzao split pushing the top side with his Baron buff. And at this point in the game, there's already nobody can 1v1 Shinzao. You can send Lissandra to try to at least stop it under the turret because she can ult if Shinzao tries to dive her, but she doesn't have teleport, so that just puts you at such a disadvantage here.
And let's see how they can actually try and turn this around. They're facing quite the daunting task trying to take down this team composition. Sinzao's going to do nothing but become even more relevant after. Oh my god, he stops the Gnar jump.
Hanguk once more. Oh! He finally gets it. That ability power coming out from the Ginsu is going to be enough. And now he's going completely on the second. Look at that damage! Does he get it? Not quite. But at what cost? They lose the inner turret for just for that singular trade to make the kills even. And even Rumble is doing absurd amounts of damage with his electro harpoons.
It is ridiculous that much damage could come out of that Sinzao before being taken down by 3 people. And still, those 3 lose out on a turret in the mid lane, lose out on pressure in the bot lane, giving up another tower. And that was all for 1 guy.
Yeah, and this is pretty fortunate. The wave did bounce back against their own turret, so by this point they're just able to pick up that extra bonus from their Baron buff. Pretty nice there. But we talk about, when you look at the LCS, they always talk about how much advantage can you get off of a Baron buff. Well, Shinzao got 2 turrets. They got 4 turrets. No, they got 5 total turrets from that single buff. This is getting scary.
And all they had to trade was a guy with a spear.
Yeah, pretty much. Now he has a Banshee's Veil, so it's even more difficult for Lissandra to try to engage on him. They honestly can't send Gnar back into that lane because also the Hyper does do magic damage, so even though the Banshee's Veil isn't really built to be against Gnar, it is still helpful when you're trying to split push versus him. Definitely. So this is a very tight bind for Team Seksi Mid.
Most definitely. Starting to look a little bit like the last game, except earlier this time, because of the fact that they had the ability to do some early game action. They had the Sinzao stronger in the early game than the Jax. He had a TP on GBM this time and weren't really punished for what happened in the last game.
Yeah. Lux gonna use her ultimate to try to wave gun, but they're actually going for a really aggressive dive here. Nar gets a 3-man stun off of his ultimate, and now they're getting completely spread out with the Lysandra, but Rumble trying to burn what he can. Everyone is so low here. Only Nar died in that entire exchange.
That's such a hectic fight, and you only lose the top laner. Meanwhile, Hanguk is in the top lane and saying, you know what, I'm gonna take this while you guys have fun over there. That was a 4v5.
Yeah, oh my goodness, this is looking even worse. Now, Hanguk is going to be able to get that top lane turret. He's going to want to go back, rotate around to the bottom side, while the rest of his team set up around the Baron.
It's like KSB is just allowed to pop the Banshee's Veil, and Hanguk wants to slyly, oh my goodness, the damage he has. KSB has to flash with the flash in return by Hanguk, and he gets a kill on the KSB.
Yeah, it looks like he won't even be punished for that. Seksi trying to catch up to him, but just simply not fast enough. Hanguk is running away with this game very rapidly, and Vayne still hasn't even died.
Jesus. Oh my goodness, this game is very, very daunting.
The composition is about diving to the back line with Gnar, Alistar, Lysandra, and they still haven't been able to kill Vayne a single time. This is a worrying trend for the game, at least. But also, especially when you're at the turret like that, Gnar got a really good ultimate and stun off in that he hit 3 people, but it was really difficult for Sivir to continue to fight from that because they were pushed away. So she did waste a little time trying to catch up there. So fairly difficult going forward. Now Gnar is on the top side. He does have teleport, but his Mega Gnar was already popped. So if they wait about 5 seconds, Seksi actually pops his ultimate on himself. Now they just have to give up the dragon. It's only dragon 2. Not worth it at all to even stick around here.
Definitely. They don't want what happened in the last fight where the 2 tanks went in but had no follow-up really. They were really far away from their carries and were not able to put down the DPS that was needed to take down the team.
Yeah, they're sold bridge for RP and Seksi, kind of watching them finish up the dragon. Meanwhile, they could have shoved out the mid lane and gotten some ward coverage around Baron, but looks like they'll be trying to do that now. This gives the red team the opportunity to try to get into this inner turret. KSB might get caught out. A good spell shield, however.
Great spell shield from KSB. They do want to siege this bot tower, and Hanguk is just walking up to the...
Oh my goodness. That was really scary. A nice ultimate. Psycho Bear is actually a little too far forward here as Vayne, but Hanguk does so much damage. He's actually just hitting the turret, and he's healing with that W ability. Vayne now coming in to clean up the kill. They weren't able to lock her down earlier. That's a good flash. Concussive blows from Speedy Turtle. Double kill for Vayne. 404. I don't even see her on the map. Maybe that's John Cena. That is probably going to be the game.
That is definitely going to be the game because they 4-0 surrender, and that is a second pickup win for gr8b8m8. Victory goes to the blue side, 5-17. GG.
Very well played. Shinzo didn't even get to finish his Blade of the Ruin King.
My goodness, that Vayne was left untouched for so many fights. 4-0-4 on the Vayne. She did only have 8 kill participation, but that's all she needed. So much potential coming out of this fight. This team. Xin Zhao was so strong with the Sated and the Guinsoo's Rage Blade. That is a scary, scary possibility.
Yeah, and to be fair, Team Seksi Mid did play several parts of the games very well. The early game in the first game, that sounds a little redundant, but it was so well done. But they just were a little afraid to pull the trigger when Vayne wasn't in those fights, and they didn't peel back and re-engage when they probably could have, and to shove their lead in a little more. And then in this game, they were just simply focusing the wrong side of the map, I feel. They kept going back to the top lane, but Hanguk was always there, and Lux had that superior range to help with her ultimate several times. So, just, they got the lead from the bot side one time. I said it before, I think maybe if they focused that more often, that might have worked a little bit better for them, but what a game for Shinzao.
Definitely. That also the communication that came out from gr8b8m8 with the calls for the top lane ganks, for all of the needed peel and things like that, because it was such a good display in the top lane where Lux got 2 kills off of fadeaway abilities, the ult coming out at the last second, and the stun coming out earlier in the game or later on in the game, where they were just basically working on all cylinders. They had the ability to call up the mid laner whenever need be. They had the ability to just fight whenever they needed to and call up who they needed to call. They had the pressure and then just cuts rolling when Xin Zhao and Vayne just were allowed to farm.
All right, so there we go. That will be 2-0. That means gr8b8m8 advanced to the finals for the Capital One circuit in the Baron bracket. That will be taking place in the first week of December. So that, be sure to check that out. And the teams will actually be playing live at the Capital One offices, I believe. So that sounds really exciting.
Most definitely.
I had a great time casting with you, Pablo.
You too, Reza. Hope you guys enjoyed everything we brought to the table.
Yep. And all right, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, friends.
See you guys.